Well, just say when.
Okay, you are good to go, sir.
Okay. We'll call the Philomath Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Can we have a roll call?
Absolutely. Josh Jones.
Here.
Teresa Nielsen. Here. Matt Lehman. Oh. Ruth Causey.
Here.
Candy Cates. Here. Spencer Irwin.
Here.
Mark Pepe.
Here.
Van Hunsaker.
Here.
Josh Sheminsky.
Here.
Frank Caseman.
Here.
David Lowe.
Here.
Jessica Andrade.
Present.
And I do not have Christopher McMorrin or Diane Crocker.
Are they?
Diane is called in and said she was going to be unable to attend, and I've not heard from Christopher, so he's probably just on the freeway.
Okay. The first item, on the agenda, I think it was mentioned at the last meeting that we need to have a chair elected for the Urban Renewal Agency, because when we met, we only talked about the Philomath Budget Committee meeting. So is there a nomination for chair of the Urban Renewal District?
I'd like to nominate Van Hunsaker.
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Approval of minutes from May 25th, 2022. Everybody remembers that correctly? So would there be a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from May 25th, 2022.
Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll go ahead and second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee meeting minutes. Wow, that's kind of May 25th, 2022. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is that we received the Urban Renewal Agency budget message. Is Mike, are you doing that? Oh, Chris is doing
It's
that.
Chris' budget message.
Okay.
I'll let him
Sounds great.
run through it.
So last year I tried to save us some time and not read this. I ended up talking longer than what it would have taken me to just read it. So I'm going to just read the budget message out of the book. Dear Budget Committee and citizens of Philomath, this document contains the proposed budget for operating the City of Philomath Urban Renewal Agency for fiscal year 2023 through 2024. The Urban Renewal Agency is budgeted to collect $797,587 in property taxes this fiscal year compared to $771,024 collected last year. The Downtown Safety and Streetscape Project, coordinated by the Oregon Department of Transportation, started last year, and we have budgeted another $500,000 towards the project this year. The project includes reconstructing the road surface, widening sidewalks, narrowing crosswalks, and adding pedestrian amenities such as benches, trash receptacles, and decorative lighting. The city successfully worked with ODOT to contribute $6.3 million to the project, and the Corvallis Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or CAMPO, to contribute $520,000. System development charges collected by the city for transportation and stormwater plan to help fund the project as well. The focus this year is on Main Street, after which the project will move to Applegate Street. A web page has been established to provide ongoing updates. Hundreds of business owners, residents, and other interested parties have signed up to receive ongoing communication about the project's progress. The district will also make another payment toward the debt for the sewer and water line replacement project that preceded the streetscape work. That's in the downtown area here. Next year, the district should consider consulting with an urban renewal expert on how establishing a repayment schedule and timeline until the district makes its final debt payment and is able to sunset. Special thanks to the Budget Committee members for the important role you have taken on in reviewing these budget documents. I welcome and look forward to your feedback. Respectfully submitted, Chris Workman, City Manager.
Thank you. Is there any questions about that or any of Chris? Okay, I think it was pretty self-explanatory. So now we'll go on to, we will note that Mr. McMorrin came in.
Thank you.
My apologies.
You're
When I left,
You're doing the good work.
when I left, my phone said I'd be here at 5:29. So I tried. I lied.
You didn't go fast enough. All right. Review budget documents and discuss relevant changes. Mike?
That's me. Okay, the urban renewals at the very back of your budget, I think everybody is there. We're looking at page 82. That's the extent of our urban renewal budget. As Chris alluded to in his budget message, we're scheduled to get projected to receive $797,000 in property taxes. And there'll be probably about 10% of prior years that we'll collect. We're actually beginning to earn some interest. I think we're up to like 2% at the pool. That's big the last couple of years. And then, of course, we get some interest on the past due tax collections. Our cash carry forward has been depleted because we've basically moved the money to the street project. So we'll rebuild that. But anything that we carry forward will be held till debt payments because I have an October payment. So that's why I always make sure I have about $20,000 to carry forward. Expenditure-wise, nothing out of the ordinary. We've got our admin overhead charge. That's Chris's time, my time, Kevin, a little bit of Kevin's, and everybody's time in there. We've got some engineering in there for Kevin asked for that just in case we need it for the streetscape. And we set aside 500, as Chris said. And we have one more. We have another debt payment for another $200,000 next year. That's the extent of our budget for next year. Do we have any questions?
No questions, it looks like.
Okay, that's good.
It's so self-explanatory.
Yep, it's a good, mature urban renewal area.
Yes.
I will ask a question. So I just see there's a line item for brownfields grant, nothing's there for over the years. What's the thought about needing that in the future or?
I think it's there because we received a brownfield grant several years ago when we were looking to purchase 14th and Main. So we had to account for it there, and I think we've just never taken it off of there as a revenue source.
I'm going to remove that.
Does everybody understand what we're talking about with an urban renewal agency? Yeah, I guess everybody was here last year, and then obviously the council. Okay, I just was making sure we were all on the same page about it. So are there any other questions? If not, we'll adjourn this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency. Okay. And I will open the City of Philomath Budget Committee meeting for here April 19th, 2023. Can we have a roll call?
Absolutely. Chaz Jones.
Present.
Teresa Nielsen.
Here.
Ruth Causey.
Here.
Candy Cates. Here. Spencer Irwin.
Here.
Mark Kepi.
Here.
Van Hunsaker.
Here.
Jeff Sheminsky.
Here.
Frank Paceman.
Here.
David Lowe.
Here.
Jessica Andrade.
Present.
And Christopher McMorrin.
Here.
Oh, we're here. Thank you, Ruth. We have two sets of minutes, if we could do one at a time. We have the May 25th, 2022 minutes. If we could have a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 25th, 2022 and April 5th, 2023.
Oh, do them both?
Yeah.
Okay,
Second it.
okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minute from May 25th, 2022 and April 5th, 2023. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes.
Add the correction to line 49
On which one?
of the May 25th, 2022 minutes. The number there should be 200,000. It's missing a zero.
What number was it? The-
Line 49 and the number is 200,000.
Oh, gotcha. Does everybody see that on the first page? Okay. Any other corrections or changes? Okay. That's more like a Scrivener thing, so we don't really need to have a motion to amend that.
We can just have the, yeah, it's Scrivenger's. The comma's in the right spot, just with the zero.
Okay. All right. Any other changes? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. And we're going to have the budget budget message to the manager.
Page 4. Dear Budget Committee and citizens of Philomath, this document contains a proposed budget for operating the city of Philomath for fiscal year 2023-2024. The city manages the budget in a transparent and a direct manner, providing consistent and careful management of revenues and expenditures in accordance with state requirements. As you review this year's proposed budget, you will see that the city is not immune to the national inflation, which has put tremendous pressure on employment costs and construction costs. We also saw the start of several big projects that will continue through this fiscal year and have a significant impact on the budget. Specifically, the new water reservoir construction has started, and the treatment plant construction is scheduled to begin before the end of the current fiscal year. The Downtown Safety and Streetscape project began construction in February on Main Street and is expected to move to Applegate Street by this time next year. Several other street and utility projects will enter the planning, engineering, and construction phases with funds already collected and saved in previous years. Although the annual budget stands on its own, each year's budget is in many ways the direct consequence of decisions made in prior years. In Philomath's case, the city is reaping the financial rewards of important and difficult past decisions to raise revenue and hold down spending in order to save for needed projects. The personnel impact of market conditions and inflation. The City Council directed an independent consultant to complete a pay equity analysis and a total compensation comparison to other cities of similar sizes prior to this year's budget. HR Answers of Tigard was contracted to complete this work and provided its final report earlier this year. The comparison showed most positions were being paid at or slightly above market, with the exception of management positions which were well below the market. This budget reflects efforts to keep employee compensation competitive with the market while ensuring both pay and benefits are provided equitably across all departments. All staff positions were placed within the consultant's recommended pay schedule grade spread, except for the city manager and assistant city manager positions, which were slotted 5 steps lower than the recommended schedule due to budgetary constraints. These efforts will protect the city from pay equity complaints going forward. In addition to moving positions into the appropriate salary schedules, a 5% cost of living adjustment was budgeted based on consumer price index for all urban consumers. That's the CPIU of 5% over the past 12 months. That was March 22 to March 23. Providing public safety, our greatest responsibility. The most important service the city can provide is public safety, which Philomath does through our exceptional police department. Chief Ken Rubin, Lieutenant David Gursky, and our officers are dependable, well-trained, and committed to keeping our community safe. We celebrated longtime senior police officer Mark Kepi's retirement and lost an officer to Benton County, but the department has been able to hire one lateral officer from Benton County back and one new recruit that will enter the police academy later this year. The department also hired a new code compliance officer who is already making improvements to our neighborhoods. A new 3-year union contract is in the approval process and will ensure our officers are provided a competitive wage and benefit package. Tax revenue, fees, and public works. The city's budgeted property tax revenue is expected to increase from $2.035 million in fiscal year 2022 to 23 to $2.195 million this year due to increased property values and an expanded tax base. This is a direct result of new houses and industrial developments that have come onto the tax rolls. The additional revenue will help offset the increased personnel costs, maintain transfers to land building and equipment fund for future equipment and building expenses, and increase the general fund's ending fund balance to $1.759 million. Utility rates were increased slightly to help keep up with inflation. The Public Works Department is led by Director Kevin Fear and Supervisor Gary Black. They do an outstanding job keeping costs down, and their crew has done an excellent job of extending the life of their equipment and vehicles, saving the city money and providing great service to residents and businesses alike. No other new taxes or fees were added this year. Looking ahead, with major capital projects in progress, some significant changes to employee compensation, and an updated employee handbook, I'm incredibly grateful for the experienced stewardship of Finance Director Mike Mrzinski and the guidance of Assistant City Manager Chelsea Starner. I also want to thank City Recorder Ruth Post for keeping us organized, on schedule, and on point. The city is in very capable hands, and I'm confident that the input from the management team and the decisions made by the City Council that are incorporated into this year's proposed budget will place the city in a strong financial position. The proactive approach to planning and carrying out the city's goals and objectives, which are identified in the strategic plan, will continue to serve the community well. Thank you for your willingness and efforts to review the fiscal year 2023-24 budget of the city of Philomath. Respectfully submitted, Chris Workman, City Manager.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Any questions of Chris at this moment? Yes.
For the personnel impact of market conditions, just talking about, we moved all staff positions replaced with the consultants on the base schedule grade, but it says that we were already paying them at or above. So what did we do?
It was depend on the position a little bit. The summary is a lot of what the consultant did first was to do the pay equity study to make sure that even across different departments, depending on your education and experiments, job requirements, your pay was going to be equitable towards other employees, even if they were in other departments. And so they created a scale from 0 to I think 36 was the high mark, and then placed everybody somewhere on that pay scale with 5% integers between each of those steps or each of those scales. So that was the first step. And so a lot of what we saw with several employees was it was just a matter of shifting them slightly because obviously they didn't match up dollar for dollar where they were. So some of those were fairly minor shifts, maybe 1% to 3%. Some maybe a little bit more, some a little bit less, but just to get them onto that scale, the new salary schedule, that's the shift there. And then we also looked at, again, the 5% cost of living adjustment based on the inflation index. So somewhere that way, there were a few positions that were a little bit outliers that were a little bit lower. So they got, placed higher. So they just got put on that step a little bit higher, or on that scale a little bit higher. Some positions, they were a little bit higher already. We just maintained. And I believe we have a couple positions where they were at that higher end. And so they're just going to see the cost of living adjustment. They're not going to see an increase because of the new scale that's out.
Yeah, thank you. Any others? Okay, now we need to have a public hearing on possible use of state revenue, shared revenue. It was just passed out to you, where I guess I understand. I do have to open the public hearing and ask, is there any public here who would wish to speak on this? And seeing none, I will close the public hearing. So, you want to talk?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we'll review the budget document and
I do have to.
discuss relevant changes.
Well, the relevant changes, you don't see those. They're on another sheet. It's a little bit too busy to give you all that. Every year we have to do this particular public hearing to get public comment and budget committee's comments. We have 5 items that we share or we get from the state. We get it based on our population. We get the liquor tax, the cigarette tax, state gas tax, and marijuana. Last year, the liquor tax was $18.99 per capita, and $19.51 this year. Cigarette tax, of course, is going down. It's going from 76 cents to 73. State gas tax, which goes to the street funds, went from $78.64 to $79.46. Marijuana tax went from $126 to $135. So, and all the numbers that you see there are the numbers that will show up within the budget. We have state shared revenue. That's the OLCC liquors, and that's a combination of, what did we get on that? Hang on. I got that in the revenue. If you look at the narratives, I don't know if y'all had a chance to go through that. We went through and explained all the information on revenues. And my book has more backup than your book, so it takes me a little bit of time to find my narratives. But the state or the liquor tax, the state shared revenue, that's 14% of the total state liquor tax collected, and we get 63%. So, no, 63% is what they share with us, and we get 14%, but that's split out based on our population. So we're going to get an estimate of $70,586 for next year. Now that will show up in the general fund. And then we have liquor tax, $110,000. I went through the numbers already. So our total budget for this year is $35,565,000. General fund is $6.4 million. The street fund operations are $742,000. Then total capital projects in this year is $12.5 million. So that's going to be our state shared, and it's going to be showing up in those 3 budgets. So do we have any questions on that?
That all makes sense, apparently.
Yeah.
So.
It is what it is.
It's a big capital project number.
Yeah, the big capital project, that's the big number. That's 1/3 of our budget, total budget. So anyway.
So you want to go through the budget now?
Yes, does everybody remember what we did last year? We went page by page.
Can I
And
just interject?
Oh.
Did we close the public hearing?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
We did, okay.
Yeah. And what we do is we're going to present each page to you and take your comments, and we'll discuss. We'll come back to you next week or next time with a report. That's when we'll discuss it in details. That's when we'll have the budget. We'll have the directors here, and they can answer any questions or they'll present for your questions. So let's go ahead and just dive in, I guess. You ready for that, Dan?
Yep,
Okay.
go for it.
We will start on page 12, which is the admin planning. Oh, it's not admin, that's admin, that's the city manager's office. Okay, now Chris has already explained the person.
Question.
That's why we're not starting on page 6.
Page what?
6.
The increase.
On the revenues.
Oh, Ruth, good catch, thank you. I'm ready to just dive into that.
It's ready to spend the money.
Yeah, we got.
You gotta have money to spend.
Yes, you do. All right, sorry, thank you very much, Ruth, go ahead.
Okay. I noticed that the percentage change is tied to the fiscal year 22-23 original budget. But I wonder if the revised budget would be the more accurate one to tie it to. And if there is no figure in the revised budget column, it becomes problematic, it becomes inaccurate. So
I can change the formula, but we'll have to take that into consideration now. I mean, that it's based on, it's true, it's on the original budget. We've always done that throughout the years. I mean, if the budget committee wants me to change that, I'll change it. We won't see the results until next week, or, they won't be available right now. I understand your point.
well, I guess I would like to know how often you revise the budget?
Quite a bit.
Because I'm not sure I remember seeing revised budget figures, but I may have.
Yeah, we've not shown the revised budget before. It's been more internal. We've passed we've usually come in June, May or June, and we've done only had to pass the supplemental budget if there were significant changes there. Mike is a little more proactive and likes to do it a couple times throughout the year, kind of keep us in check a little bit more. We thought that showing the revised budget this year would be helpful so you can see where there were changes. For the most part, most columns there aren't changes, but where there are, then they do tend to be significant and they're worth talking about. But just to be consistent with previous years, I advised Mike to just go ahead and do it original budget to original budget, knowing that some things are going to have changed, but fairly minor. I mean, there's only a few in there that we'll look through.
I'm comfortable with that. I
Okay.
just wanted to understand
Okay.
your thinking.
All right, well, page 6, that's the summary of the city's total budget. That's where I get 35,565,000, which you see in the proposed budget. The reason why I highlight transfers in, transfers out is to make sure that's the balancing factor. If those aren't balanced, your budget's not balanced. So this is a balanced budget. Chris has alluded to the property taxes going up to 2.1. Almost 2.2. Personal services went up 8%. But this is everything. This is the whole budget. If you turn to page 7, that's when we start.
Can I ask a question about page 6 first?
Sure.
So can you explain the difference in the investments? That's a 439,159, and the proposed is so much higher, 250%.
Yeah, well,
The reason for that is
we're now having more than 1% interest, and we've got some big balances out. The biggest balance we have right now projected is in the land, building, and equipment. We've got a $12 million budget in there. That's generating a lot of interest. And then it also throws in property tax income, interest income that we get from that. That could be substantial too. So it's a conglomeration. It's not just interest income, it's property tax, and you've got just those are the two big ones. We get a big chunk of change from those. I could dig deeper into that later.
I just was wondering, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So another number that stands out greatly is the contingency. Maybe you'll be talking about that as it's like down in the very.
That'll be in the individual fund. Yeah, you'll see that. Yes. We had one more out there.
Any other questions on page 6?
I'm assuming the federal sources drop off because prior sources were associated with pandemic-related funds.
Yes, ARPA funds fell off. Yes, there's nothing this year. Now, page 7, that's this one. This is the high-level view of the general fund. The property taxes that we get are basically in there. There does not include the urban renewal. They show up in their own little fund, but they are part of the. No, they're not part of it. Oh, they should be. No, they're not. They're not part of this number on this collaboration. Property tax is the biggest source of revenue we have. Next one after that is our overhead charge. That's where we get reimbursed for our services to other funds. So that's the big 2 chunks of that. We got building and planning. That's Ruth and her group. And then, of course, Frank, our other big source of revenue. Yes, Jeff?
I just have a question about the miscellaneous, because it does seem to be significant from the original budget to the revised budget, 34 changed to 57. It looks like there's been a $25,000 gap between what we actually do. And can you explain, or why is there such a
We will bring
variance?
back a report if need be. I mean, we'll look at the miscellaneous revenue. So you want to know the extent, what that consists of?
I would like to, yeah.
And I have one.
Go for it.
The court going down $115,000. Are we going to
Okay.
have
We'll bring a report.
fewer people getting in trouble?
We'll bring a report on that one. We'll have the chief put together a report plus the court for. So you want to know why it went down?
Yeah. Well, that's quite a bit.
Yes. Okay. And then we talked about our, look at the expenditures, the biggest increase that we had in there. You'll see it when we get to individual pages, individual departments. The payroll was the biggest thing. That's the biggest increase. And non-departmental is no longer in there. That's why it's zeroed out. And that is pretty much it for the general fund on those pages. Any questions?
Mike, can you refresh my memory? I think non-departmental went to city council, is that right, or did
It got spread out to Chris, admin, my department, and council. And I think that's pretty much those 3. So you keep that in mind when you see our budgets. They did increase, but besides payroll, it increased because we took certain items on. You will see that in the budgets when you get there.
And just a reminder, that changed because of this budget committee's request last year.
Right. And we move to page 8.
Actually, can we just get a bit of a summary on the city council budget? Just that change.
Well, can we do that when we get to your budget?
Yeah.
Okay, you'll see that. Page 8 is the revenues. Now, this is the fine details from page 7. And you can see that the total grants are zeroed out. And we will bring you a report for the court.
I guess I do have, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Oh, you didn't have your hand
Well,
up?
I wasn't,
Yeah.
a little bit. So just curious about defense attorney reimbursement, why that would be up for higher, et cetera.
Which one?
It's bottom one, defense attorney reimbursement went from 1298 to 4868.
We'll bring you a report.
Anybody else have any questions on this page? Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, page 8, I'm sorry.
Can you tell me what the wetlands grant went for?
That was the mitigation.
As part of the Wetland Coalition, we received money, and we were the fiscal agent for that grant, and it went towards the wetland coalition. It's not the right word. The wetland consortium that's hosted by Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments. It paid for a study, and I can bring you back more information on that.
So you like that? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, this is just a
Go ahead.
little thing for franchise taxes.
Okay.
Is Corvallis disposal, is that with public services?
Yes.
Okay.
Zoning compliance went from $3,000 to $32,000. Is that because of the compliance officer or what?
We'll bring, okay, we'll find out. We'll bring that report.
Okay. Yes.
I don't know what the DLCD grant is, so I'd like to know more, and that'll show up more in the city council as a pretty big number later on, so.
We'll see that when we get there.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that, because I don't know about that.
Okay.
Well, the DLCD there, that was
That was
like 3 years ago.
yeah, that's
Oh,
going to
so
roll
it's
on.
not money this year.
Right, but when we get to the city council part, it'll show up again.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just pointing that out now.
Oh, okay. I see. Thank you.
Page 8. Okay, go ahead.
Northwest Natural Gas, it seems to have fluctuated over the years and up quite a bit. And why that would be?
Depends on the temperature. Believe it or not, the temperature makes a difference. Think about
Well,
it.
heat.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that one always comes up, and it's like it's the temperature.
It's not a set monthly like your Comcast, your Comcast or whatever, where you're paying the same amount for internet every month. That one's going to vary a lot.
This one
Year by
varies.
year, it's going to change.
So we're projecting into next year what the temperature's going to be.
Some of it's temperature, a lot of it's growth, though.
Yeah.
We're looking at new industries coming in.
Okay. Any more questions on page 8? Okay.
Moving to page 9. Any questions on it?
No, not now. I had one about the interest on investment, but you already covered that.
Okay.
Anybody else? Oh,
For
Go ahead.
revenue from downtown holiday decor, is that anticipated fundraising?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? David?
Maybe it's covered under urban renewal administrative overhead, 29,000 roughly to 241. Is that reflected in?
It's reflected in, should be.
Not sure just what that actually means or how it ties into the urban renewal budget.
What that is that's oversight. That's Chris's time, that's my time. And the engineers,
A
right?
lot of it's the engineers, the fluctuation there.
I will find out I'll do a workup on that one.
It is go time on that, that's all that we're now doing.
Ruth?
Yes, I had a similar question on some of the administrative overhead. But as I look at those numbers, I wonder if some of them were transposed because it looks like the number for water would be more appropriate for sewer and the number
I'll
for.
look at those. I'm gonna look, I just saw that too. I'm going, They could be. But that the 560 is the right number. They could be switched a little. I will check into that.
The last three looked to me like they were switched around.
Yeah, I agree.
Any others on page 9? Okay. Page 10. Oh, this is just an explanation of what
That's
those
the
things are.
narrative, yeah.
So,
I have a comment.
Yeah, I was waiting for you. She's my look it over.
The building and electrical permits heading, the building permit number is actually, appears to be all of the permits plus zoning compliance. And the plan actions and zoning compliance is only plan actions. So I think you either need to change the narrative or change the numbers.
I will look into that.
Any others on page 10? Okay. Or 11? Okay. So I guess admin and planning,
Yeah,
page 12.
page 12. Okay, there, what's that?
Yeah. We'll get to that next time. I'm ready to have a conversation. Probably not what you think.
You haven't seen that, huh?
Hey, listen.
Okay, all right, Mike.
I missed that. Okay, anyway,
Go ahead.
page 12. What we've got there is that's the payroll for the city manager, assistant city manager, part of Ruth, and part of the deputy city recorder. And those numbers have gone up based on the HR answers, the salary study we had. And when they go up, all the rest of the numbers below go up, with the exception of health insurance, those are flat, but the rest are somewhat variable. We have sick leave, sick and vacation accrual. You're going to see that throughout the budgets. What I've tried to do there is this year, I looked at each individual and tried to figure if they're going to retire. There's a potential of a retiree here, so that's why I've increased it. So hey, you'll see that throughout the budgets on the personnel. So ask questions on that. But that's what I did. I looked at each individual, like for my department, I've got one retiring, but she's retiring this year, so it'll probably go down on mine. I don't remember off the top of my head. So are there any questions there?
So we're going to discuss the piece that, as far as the salary increase, so
Yeah,
that'll be a discussion for later.
We're planning to bring all of that to the next council meeting, so
Okay.
all the recommended salaries, HR answers, where we landed, where we put people, and then the employee handbook, so a lot of personnel related things.
And we'll bring a summary together for the budget committee. I mean, ideally, we would have all those discussions with the council 2 or 3 months ago. We were just delayed on getting information and answers, so we're a little behind. We got to the point where we had to budget something. We put it in the budget to be conservative, but we'll bring a lot to the council, and then we'll do a summary for this body.
David.
So, as if I remember, this was the year that there were going to be negotiations with unions. Will that be part of the reporting to the council?
It will, and we should,
We hope that we have an update for you,
Yeah.
at least on Public Works. We hope that we're more finalized.
yeah, on PD, we're just getting
We're
ratified.
getting
On
ratified.
Public Works, we're close. Well, hopefully we'll be there by the next meeting of the budget committee.
So those numbers are what you estimate reflected in what we're seeing here?
Yes.
The
So
best
we've
of your
done our
The best.
best to estimate, yes.
Ruth, you had a question?
Yeah, could you just clarify the administrative secretary recorder? Is that one position or is that part? Is that Ruth's
It's the
position?
deputy city recorder.
That's the city recorder.
Oh, sorry, I'm
Yes.
reading the wrong one.
Yeah,
Deputy
I
city
have
recorder,
put in a
city recorder.
request next year for Mike and I to look at some of these positions and get them. It's more difficult on the sheet than our narrative sheets, but there are some positions that are not titled what we call the job positions now, so there's a little confusion.
Okay, so let me ask this. We have a city recorder.
Yes,
Do we have a deputy city recorder?
yes,
Yeah.
that's way
And
long.
stop. And do we have an administrative assistant as well?
No,
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on page 12? Okay. Page 13, Mike.
Page 13, yes. Now, this is where you will start seeing the increases from non-departmental. In the admin budget, administrative services budgets, they brought the attorney non-contract, computer support, labor consulting, no, that was there last year, that's right. And then Unicode updates, the network consultant, the newsletter, and web page maintenance. Those were non-departmental. They are now in the admin budget. Any questions on this page?
Yes.
Um,
Go ahead, Ruth.
Thank you. But the network consultants and IT, that's a 19% increase. Can you explain the basis for that?
We can bring back some information on
Right.
that. Most of it is related to the cybersecurity upgrades that we're having to make to get additional cybersecurity coverage, and that's what most all of it is, I think.
Did you have one?
I had a question just about the labor consultant, because it was a non-departmental, or what, where did that money come from, I guess? From different departments, or where was that last year? Because it wasn't actually showing.
It was in non-departmental last year.
It was non-departmental last year.
Yep,
Okay.
and it was 10,000. I got your note. It was 10,000. We put 10,000 as from the budget committee. When we went out to bid and came back, we found out it was 30 grand. And so we did a supplemental budget to increase that.
Okay.
Christopher?
Oh, you may have mentioned this, I didn't catch it, for the planning expense, just that increase of 200.
Oh.
Okay, we can bring something back on that.
But I see like it also has been even higher than that in the past, so like I don't know if that just fluctuates a lot.
We'll bring something to you. We'll answer that.
Is that money that we paid to the county?
No,
Or is it our employee?
that is in the planning budget, if I believe, isn't it? I think that's where I pay the bills from.
Mhm.
So that'll be next page, but, so it is not the planning expense, that's something else.
Okay. Well, anybody else got anything on 13? Okay. Moving on.
And then on page 14 and 15 are the narratives. And there's some of those, that's all the narratives on 14 and 15.
Ruth?
Question on the contracted planner is there's a 20% cost increase. Is that a compensation increase or his hours?
Both. We're gonna budgeting for 2 additional hours per week, and he's got a hit inflation sitting his position as well, so he's also getting a pay increase. So we're paying more per hour, and we're looking to add 2 hours.
Okay.
So you're going from 14 to 16. Thank you.
Maybe when, just like that, if you, on the narrative, if you was to mention that, that might catch some of, that type of thing might catch some of our questions, or reduce some of our questions. Okay. Anything else on 14 and 15? Okay, 16.
16 is the building permit department. That's Ruth and her assistant, the deputy city recorder. We'll change the title next year for the admin secretary recorder. Again, that's already increased because of the salary study and everything else related to it is increased. Now, the next thing that we've added to this budget for next year's is some dues and education for the deputy city recorders. So that's the big change besides the salaries. Any questions?
So far as credit card fees doubling, is there a reason why we doubled the budget for that? Are they really doubled?
They start to increase, yeah. There's nothing free when they use those credit cards, and we don't really charge that back to the citizens.
can I note that we don't allow anybody to pay for a permit that's more than $500 with a credit card.
Hmm.
So we do limit that expense for the city. Nobody's coming in and paying their SDCs or permits for a house on a credit card.
That's a pretty good credit limit.
I don't finance their trip to Mexico.
Well, but that's good to know. I mean, but we are paying
There are
whatever,
all
the
little permits. that pay with
2%
credit
or
cards.
whatever, 2 or
It's not,
3%
it's not cheap.
to the credit card companies.
They passed their costs on to us. They've had inflation too, with all their costs. So they passed it on to us.
Is it the same charge for a debit card as a credit card?
There's a little bit of a difference. If you want to, we can do a report on that. It's hard to dig out.
It's kind of hard.
Because they look at Visa, MasterCard, they don't care if it's debit or credit. Because usually your debits will be run as a credit card.
Right.
So it's hard to tell.
So I'm just curious if there's been any study to look at, well, not accepting any sort of card at all and requiring cash or check or something, and if that would drive up delinquent debt or whatever you call it, non-collectible or not.
That would drive up the number.
It would, yeah, it would drive us that number of hours.
We need somebody to run.
I would say that most
Yeah.
cities are actually going the opposite way, not
I would also
not
think.
Not
accepting as much
accepting
cash.
Versus
right.
getting them
It's also
money
a
on
cost
board.
of
It's a cost of doing
Yes.
business.
People
Yeah.
are more willing.
It's a cost of
Yeah.
doing
And
business.
And it probably would, David.
Yeah.
And then I guess
Yeah.
$2,000,
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty common way people pay for things. I don't carry my checkbook or.
What about crypto?
Transaction fee for
Yes,
that
how
too,
do
Bill.
you project your inspection costs? Because they do vary quite a lot depending on how much building is going on.
Yeah, I talked to Ruth and we just do the best swag we can do.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
It had to do with how do we project the building and electrical
Inspection.
inspections. And
All
it's-
that stuff, yeah.
It's not
That's
something,
baseball.
They're gonna lag behind land use decisions, so if we've got a big subdivision that's approved, we know that that's gonna generate a lot of permits. We've not seen a lot of land use, decisions on bigger developments, and we'll see fewer of those. So there is a little bit of a crystal ball there, but, and we try to be conservative on the expense side of it, so we're not kind of whereas all of those are carried over, there's an expense there, but there's revenue that's coming in to back those as well. So if we are off, it's a pretty easy justification at the end of the year to adjust that.
I try to review those in March to see where we are in the current year and see if we're ahead or behind. And if we're pretty even, then I assume that next year is going to be a little bit more just because of growth.
Okay. Any others on 16?
yeah, go ahead.
17 then.
17, 18 are the narratives.
Oh,
Any questions on them?
moving right along. 19.
Then we move to my department. Like I said, the big thing is salaries and then the sick and vacation accrual. Like I said, I've got a retiring person this year. So next year it will go down because I'm not anticipating somebody's going to retire. And then even if they left, I looked at their lead banks and projected from that. So that's how I did that. Then on our budget, we brought in the advertising and legal notices, legal expense. That was a one-time deal, and I don't think we'll have any more this year. Audit fees that we brought in, state filing fee, that should have always been here. That's pretty much it that we brought over from non-departmental. The rest is normal operating. Any questions on the finance department?
How many staff do you have?
Currently, I have 3 1/4.
3 1/4.
Plus me. So that's
And one is retiring.
right.
Will you be replacing that individual?
Yes, I am. I'm moving some people around within my department. It's a good way, it almost looks like a cross-training exercise. Julie, who's been doing utility billing, is moving into payroll AP. Diana, who's been working over at court, and well, with court being down because of, not writing tickets and stuff, so there's not a lot of activity, so I'm moving Diana from a part-time position to a full-time position to do utility billing. So, and then I'll still have Brianna doing court. We'll still have that one position just to see if everything works out with Diana. I think she's going to do a really good job because she's been helping with capital projects. I keep telling her she should have been an accountant, so she's good.
Any other questions? Yes, Christopher.
Miscellaneous is drastically higher in the revised budget from the original budget, and then is also much higher in the proposed budget for this year.
I can bring you a report on that.
Thank you.
I had the answer, but I forgot. Because I looked at that too and went, what? It's something that's legit, and that's why it went down.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a one-time deal, that's why I brought it back down to reality this year, but I'll bring a report.
Okay. Anything else on 19? Okay. 20 is
20 and 21 are probably
the
the
narrative.
narratives.
Okay. Nothing on them, any questions? Okay.
And then
Municipal court.
Municipal court. Okay, there I've got the finance staff. That's Brianna, that's court clerk. Then we have her assistant who's going to be moving over to my department. Then the judge contract. But it's like, and then everything else there is the vacation accrual. That went down because I don't have anybody retiring out of that this year, but that's why I knocked it down next year. Nothing in particular there. They still have prisoner care. I mean, they need to keep that just in case. I think we have somebody we're using it this year. I think we're up to about $3,000. We've used $3,000 of it this year. So it's a big number in the budget, but it's something that we need to keep there. Any questions on court?
Christopher?
I think just to match up the narrative with the budget, which position is the court clerk and which position is the finance administration assistant?
The court clerk, okay. That's the 61,000, that's the court clerk.
Okay, the finance.
Finance staff.
Okay.
Finance staff, right. And then the
Part-time and
the
finance
part-time.
assistant.
Right.
And is that court, what FTE is the court clerk?
Currently 0.8.
0.8,
Okay.
right.
Mhm.
David?
So the judge contract, original budget for this year was 30,000, and it went down and revised about 16, now it's back up to 30.
Those numbers are switched. In the budget, this year's budget, they're switched. The judge should be the 30,000, and I need to go in and change that.
So
That's something that I'll do for year end. Those two numbers are they're mixed up.
Revised.
In the revised.
Right, in the revised.
It doesn't affect the projection for this year's budget, just the revised is
Right.
inverted.
Original and revised are both, oh no.
from 2022, 23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those,
Yep.
okay. So then that makes the proposed budget similar.
Right.
Mhm.
Gotcha, okay.
So what made it go, essentially go double from what it was originally envisioned last year to?
They're switched.
No,
You're actually looking at the assistant finance director, or finance assistant.
no.
The first three lines are spot.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, you know.
the revised is okay.
Wait.
Oh, no. The judge gets more than 15,000.
What is the assistant?
Yeah.
that's
Or just that
probably-
one row.
I need to fix
That
that.
one row.
Yep, I need to fix that.
That
Original and,
well, probably,
makes sense.
so actually, they was never changed, but other than on this piece of paper.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, I got you. Does everybody else understand that? Okay. I didn't even catch that.
I still
Can
have.
you repeat which ones that was in?
That's the finance assistant and the judge contract. And within the original and the revised, I've got to get those lined up properly. I'm just gonna
Thank
go,
you.
I'll just go fix that whole thing.
So just for all clarification, the finance assistant for the original 22-23 was 15,866.
Correct.
And the revised, it wasn't revised, and it should be 15,866.
Right.
And the judge contract would be the 3240 in both places.
I'll make that change.
Okay. Ruth?
Mike, is the finance staff, is that a compensation increase or a time increase?
It's the compensation, that's the salary study increase.
Okay.
Any other questions on 22? Okay. On 23, the narrative, 23 and 24.
On accounting going to 40 hours from 32 to 40.
Yes, it does. No, that's right, she goes to 40 hours, yeah.
That was the question.
Oh, Ruth, I'm sorry. She went from besides the salary study, she went from 8.8 to full-time. We changed that this year. So that's something that's
Going
I
from
think it will
32,
change mid next year.
right, it'll be mid next year for her.
from 32 hours a week to 40 hours a week.
Right,
So there is an hourly increase.
yep.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be, again, on those narratives, if you put that kind of stuff in there, I think that would really help. Okay, moving on to police.
All right, okay, police,
25.
page 25. Okay, again, we have a salary study increases with the projected union contract. We've got in there, fixed those. Added a new category, physical fitness. Boot allowance is up this year, or it's up for the staff this year. And you've got intermediate and advanced certifications now this year. That used to be incentives, but we've switched to certifications. It's another.
It was built into their salary, and we have removed the certification pay. Most cities now, when you pay a police officer, you have a police officer salary schedule, and then you pay them for their certifications on top of it. So we pulled the certifications out, their percentages out, and put them separate. So now they have a separate line item so that we can track those better. And the police were in full agreement with that. That's what they're used to seeing in other contracts.
Oh, and you notice that up there on police officers, the number actually went down. So
Right.
that was
Right.
Okay.
But this doesn't necessarily mean that we're paying them less for the time, the average and the other things.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, we've just moved them, so they've just been allocated more professionally. They did go up, it just doesn't look like it when you look at the salary line there.
David?
Yeah, code enforcement is kind of curious because we just hired the code enforcement officer. We've got the person at 18.7 to this year and then it goes down. I mean, why would that be?
I'll have to look into that. It's based on whatever they told me to put in there, so I'll look at that and bring back.
Advertised at a $20,000 a year position, it looks like it's 10,000.
Yep, I'll look at that.
Any other questions on page 25? Okay. 26.
26, that's his operating budget. Can't think of anything that stood out. That this is pretty much status quo. He did have a couple changes here and there. Can't remember what they were off the top of my head. I think the consortium at the very bottom went up a little.
What is that?
Well, let's find out. We'll bring that back. How's that? I'll let Ken talk about that.
Well, laminate something.
Yep.
Oh, it says it on the narrative, what it's for.
Dispatch software. Oh, okay. All right. Yes,
This is not
Christopher.
so much like a budget question, it's just for youth services, advertising and promotional material targeted towards youth in the community. I'm curious what that is.
The bike rodeo that they do and those types of
So it's more like
things.
events, not like,
Right,
okay.
Yeah.
I guess when I read advertising, promotion, it's something more like,
yeah, no, it's,
billboards or something.
yeah.
It
No,
could be
it's-
National Night Out, stuff like
Right.
Yeah,
that.
National Night Out, bike rodeo.
I was gonna say, way up at the top,
Well,
it
yeah.
says Bike Olympics. So
Chris, you want to report on that?
I mean, it's not like, it's not like a budget question, it's more of a policy question, I
Okay.
guess, so I can just talk to Ken later.
We'll just make a note and Ken can just give a quick
Okay.
description of what the.
David?
what the-
Yeah, he'll be here, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
This will be probably Ken next time too, but is the department full force at this point? Insurance officers?
We are down one officer currently, and we're trying to get someone through the process. It just started. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
And this budget is for like fully staffed. all
Full
seven.
staff,
All
yes.
seven, okay.
Yep, even, it's vacant, it's budgeted, yes.
I think Jessica might have had a question. Did she?
Oh, Jessica, no.
Just an age.
Just stretching.
She's stretching.
Thanks for helping me with that.
A
I-
lot to look at.
Any other questions on 26? Or the narratives on 27 and
27
28
through
and 29?
29.
Just a minor point, under social security, all of the narratives read the same. Did you intend to include the word rate?
Hang on.
twice?
For what we're doing?
Social security,
That's gonna, should that be the same on everything?
Yeah, it should be on every one of them, 7.65.
Oh,
Huh?
it's like, can you read the phrase?
Current rate.
Great.
oh,
I'm consistent. I copied the
That's what
same
Ruth was
thing.
You're
saying.
consistent.
Yeah, yeah, I will fix that.
All right. So we're off of that, we're on to what, buildings and grounds?
Think so.
Did we miss
I'm
anything?
writing down Ruth's sketch here.
Okay.
Okay, yes, we're page 30, we're on building and grounds.
After it's done.
Oh, boy. So we start seeing Kevin split out all over the place with his utility maintenance workers plus custodian.
That'd be worth a
So, yeah, I think that's important.
quick discussion to get back, and maybe then rather write it up, just, I know we've got new budget members on the Public Works is a little unique on their personnel. Again, the department head will just look at Kevin's position as department head, so he oversees all, water, sewer, all these different departments, so they split his time out, and so you're not gonna be able to see, Kevin's salary, for example, is gonna be spread over all these different departments. And when you look at the summary, it'll tell you how the time's allocated out, but all those expenses get allocated out for all of the employees, not just the department head, because different employees, and we are very careful when we do that, and every year we go to the department heads, ask them to look at those allocations. Some employees spend a lot more time on streets than they do at the water treatment plant. Some spend a lot more time at the water treatment plant, wastewater plant, than they do on the street. So we do look at those numbers and adjust them every year appropriately based on how much work they're doing in the different departments, because we don't want to, we don't want to subsidize parks with everybody else when all the work's being done in the streets and we're charging the street for work being done in the park. So, just, it's a little bit hard to look at those numbers other than the adjustments. But just know that's how we do it on the personnel. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah,
A little
and, I mean, we recognize too that it's not perfect. I mean, you're not keeping track hour by hour every day.
We do keep track hour by hour
They
every
do it
day.
because
Oh,
of
they do?
workers' comp,
Workers'
yes.
comp.
You have to do it because of workers' comp, yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, we do
so-
keep track.
That's overwhelming right
So
there.
and then
Yeah, it's fun. It's very
annually,
fun.
okay.
Oh,
well,
you should see the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we get the timesheet, it's day by day, but when we budget, we're looking again, what changed, what have we been doing?
Yeah,
When by what change, it means we're looking at
Okay.
those
So
timesheets.
they're pretty real, at least for the past year.
Yep.
For the current year.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Chris?
Just for gas and oil for buildings, what are we putting gas in the building and maintenance, the building and grounds?
Sorry, I changed.
That's,
Let me get back
vehicle,
there. Vehicles, they do have
vehicle
vehicles.
expense, like gas and oil.
For what, why are we paying from that from building and maintenance?
Because they don't walk.
Because we have a building here and they have to come here. As
Right.
part of their
And they get the gas
Vehicle
bills and they
maintenance is
split them out.
build.
Okay, just because that's new then too, right?
Yep, that's a new one. It's not a whole bunch, but it is. They're starting to get
Okay.
control of that.
So it's just paying for the people who come here to drive here.
Mhm.
Okay.
And there's maintenance that's done here as well. Like we get pressure
Oh, yeah.
washed, we get repainted sometimes. So any of the maintenance that's here. So again, there's the aggregate number, and then they'll break it out, say, okay, how much of this total bill would go towards buildings or grounds to street? And so it's an allocation, right? It's based on a percentage, not a dollar for dollar.
Now, all these numbers are reviewed by the directors, so now you see anything going down, they can tell you why they've dumped it, or they've reduced it. Because if you look at building repair and maintenance, it went from 35 to 20. That's based on Kevin's guesstimate that's all they're going to need next year.
And how does that work? Because in the narrative of that, it says there's a $25,000 remodel at City Hall.
That's an old note.
Okay.
Good.
Need to revise that one.
Like that plus the another CP notice.
Is there any questions on page 30 or 31? We kind of did both of those together.
Yep, sure did.
Okay, or the narrative on 32 and 33.
I will make that change for the building
I
repairs.
guess, Ruth.
Go ahead, Ruth.
This is probably a Kevin question, but do you know how often the AEDs have to be replaced?
The actual units, the units themselves, not very often. You just need to replace the pads, whatever. I used to do that at my corner store. So
You want Kevin?
not very often.
No, we'll ask Kevin.
Well, I guess I did, in that respect, would know, it was listed under supplies, but the narrative says replace the AEDs, which cost $15,000. So are they replacing
Well,
one?
I think they, I don't know.
We'll find out.
It
Yeah.
says all city buildings, and they may be on a replacement.
But, I mean, I understand
Schedule.
about the pads thing, which would be a supply as opposed to replacing the whole piece of equipment.
Yeah.
They're probably getting past their useful life. We don't want them to be past their useful life. Sure.
Somehow I think it's 10 years, but I might be wrong.
But like I said, he looked at these numbers and gave me new numbers, so.
There's a pun there with useful life and AEDs. I just can't quite make the connection.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that was bad. That was really bad, Chris.
Good
Okay.
try.
We're done with buildings and grounds then, so.
Yes.
On to parks on page 34.
Again, it's the salaries increase and there's splits like Chris has already discussed. So that's the payroll on page 35. Nothing out of the ordinary there. He is spending more on crushed rock than asphalt now.
It's just material cost.
Yeah, just materials. He's splitting them out a little bit. It's getting finer as his details.
Is there any questions on either of those pages, 34 or 35? Christopher?
Just for uniform allowance, it's spending $120 on it. But it says it's $375 per employee.
Right, but that's also split. That's split based on their allocations.
They wear the same uniform no matter what work they
Right,
do.
okay. They don't change their parks uniform.
Okay. Oh, David,
Just curious about ground maintenance going down, $11,000. Seeing that would be very constant, maybe go up.
Let's ask Kevin, because that's, like I said, his numbers, those are based on his numbers, so we'll get him to explain.
okay. Any other questions? Okay. Or the narratives on 36 and 37? Non-departmental, page 38. Oh, there's nothing there.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Question in the narrative.
There is no narrative.
Where's the narrative?
They are split. Okay, we'll move to city council. They took quite a few items. They brought in the dues for the COG, dues for the LOC, League of Oregon Cities, and then the COG is City of Council of Governments. The Ethics Commission fee was brought over. The new item that they have is the downtown holiday decor. Insurance, I believe they brought in from the non-departmental. I left some labor consultant money in there just in case they need something next year. What else did we have? And the grants DLC, the grant DLC, that 152,000 is the wetland mitigation, and I think we have something on that to bring back, so.
Is that what you was
That's
referring to?
I think that's what you were talking about,
Right.
Jeff, yeah. Yeah, that's just, I just used that title, but that was for the wetland mitigation. I recognize the number.
I do have one question on in terms of where it's placed. The music in the park, why would that be parks?
That could be in the parks, it just fell right
I
there.
mean, was it, a council decision and so
That, I don't know.
that's,
I think it's just a discretionary program.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do it anymore. The council could nip it, but
Yeah. we would-
I don't know, it just, it doesn't really matter.
there's not really a lot of park expense to it. I mean, they don't staff it. They don't, it really is just a pass-through. It's money that's going towards paying for the bands to be there. So there's really no public works expense there.
Which mostly parks is,
Right.
yeah, pretty, okay, that's a good example right there, a reason right there, actually. Okay,
And the flower baskets, is there a reason why you're not going to any of those?
We're not doing for the next couple of years during construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a little bit of money left there, hoping that there may be some fundraising that can go towards the holiday decorations, but yeah, that'll come back. It's just down for this year, next year.
David?
So on the ARPA projects, I know the council is looking for input as to what citizens want to spend a certain amount of money on. But there was an allocation, I think, for holiday decorations. Is that part of that ARPA?
Yeah, this was decided, this budget was put together before that decision was made, so I need to go back and revise this. I was just looking at it going, I gotta fix that. That should be 160, and then I have to split out the rest of it.
Well, it's all still, I don't know if we might just leave it. It's all ARPA funds. We're just
Yeah.
we need to report back to the state where the money's going to. And
True.
so as far as budgeting goes, it's all 179.
So we do have a line item for downtown holiday decor.
That came from the donation line up above in the revenue. I put enough in there for, should be a straight wash, but not quite. So you look back on the revenue, I think it was 5,000.
Right, but then we have 12,000.
Yeah, and so the numbers don't match at the moment.
I think the intent was that part of that would be hopefully fundraising, and then there would be an additional amount, and that was done before the discussion about the ARPA funds.
The additional amount over the 5,000 was originally just going to be from general.
For the city to help purchase.
Okay. But I mean, so just since we aren't deducting anything from ARPA right now, that the 7,000 additional was going to be not from ARPA before we approved that.
Right.
So the ARPA, if I recall, this spring, or no, when was it? It wasn't 2 months ago, right? We met. Oh, maybe it was last fall.
That was last year. Yeah.
It's last year before.
Oh, that's right, a whole year ago.
Yeah.
So that 179,000, the council was going to decide what to do with it. Can you give a real brief what that's going to?
Next meeting, I may be
Okay.
able to. We talked about it at the last city council meeting.
Oh,
and
okay.
the council decided on a few items, but the larger amount of money, I think up $160,000, hasn't been decided yet.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. So the city's going to put a survey out and ask residents, kind of give them a list of other projects and a other box, and so it's still in determination.
Yeah. Okay.
So in budget wise, we could keep the 179. I think we could, if anything, reduce we do have some direction from the council, so I think we could reduce the 12 for the flower basket.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah. Jessica?
Last year I had asked for an allocation for the dues for the People of Color Caucus of the League of Oregon Cities, and the caucus didn't end up getting our bank account altogether yet, so we didn't actually pay that out. And I was wondering if that allocation is still figured into one of the dues line items.
I believe it's 5233, that increase. That's not all of that, but that was part of that.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Christopher?
This is probably like a bigger question we can talk about more later, but I just know it's come up a few times in council, sort of funding community events or projects or something, and talking about trying to like maybe establish some sort of community building fund. If that's something the council does before the budget's done, is that something we could add as a line item in here?
Yes.
Okay. And I will follow up with you about that, please.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on 39? On page 40.
Page 40, that's the end of the budget for general fund. The transfers are the items that go into the land, building, and equipment fund. That's the LBE fund. That's basically we're putting money aside for project, or not projects, basically equipment, vehicles, and probably buildings, a little bit of buildings. And the transfer to streets, that is, last year we were, the street, can't remember which one it was, the Republic Service, and then there's one other one, can't remember which one it was.
Oh.
They were over in the street funds, we moved into the general fund, so that's what this transfer is this year. Now we're sending that money to the street funds. We'll have a $250,000 contingency. Our beginning fund, our ending fund balance for the year will be 1.75. That should cover 3 or 4 months of operations until the property taxes come in. Any questions?
This isn't part of the council fund. So
It
probably
belongs in
there
the
should be
next
a
tab
tab
over
there.
that says transfers and contingency. I think in the right spot. I think it belongs under that transfers and contingencies.
Oh, where's that at?
Council.
What's that? There isn't that tab though, right?
There is a tab. Yes, there is a tab.
Where?
The next
You
tab.
should have it. It should be transfers.
It's on the bottom.
Did it not get put in yours?
You might not have gotten, there were a
We have a
couple.
tab, we
I
can-
thought we kept those books for staff, but apparently you lucked out and won the lottery on that one.
Okay,
I do not have a tab because I said, give me that book. I can-
yeah, I've got a
There's
tab.
another one out there.
Oh, you got
This
it, Tab?
this was
I have a
in the
tab.
city council.
That's not mine, the tab.
I think it's
Okay.
before it.
Oh,
Just
that-
look in the,
That's last thing on, just before.
Yeah, mine.
Mine, it was between the actual budget and the narrative
Oh,
is
okay.
where the transfer sheet
Yeah.
was.
And not that next one.
It's hiding.
I don't think,
Such as
yeah, not the second, just
go
that
back to.
little bitty one. Okay, is everybody square?
You know, pull that
Okay,
page
I think
out,
we're-
put it behind
all
the
right.
next tab.
I just don't have a tab.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
Okay,
same.
do we want to, oh, yes.
Just because we kind of skipped over the narrative, just to point out again, there is no narrative for the DLCD grant.
oh,
I know you're working on getting that information, but when you do find out, it would be nice to have it there.
Well, on the DFCD, there's
Yeah,
not
it
much,
it stops at ARPA, and I think that afterwards it should be DLCD.
but I mean, there's no money going for the next year.
But there's money, there was a change in it. is what I'm
okay,
saying.
Oh.
It was in the revised budget for this year.
that's in this year, but it's not gonna be there next year, that's why it's not on the narrative, sorry about that.
Oh, that's what was happening to it, where was it, that's, trying to get more information.
Oh, it's,
Do you have last year's budget?
Well, but it wasn't in last year's budget. It was-
no, it was
Oh,
not.
oh, it wasn't even in there?
It was
Oh,
not,
okay,
it came
I
in
gotcha.
after,
Because it's
after
only
the
in
beginning of the year.
revised budget.
Oh,
I guess, can you just bring a report on that?
Yeah.
That's.
I get it now.
I think I have that.
Hey, well,
Yeah,
I'm only
I've
gonna be
got that.
7 in a couple of days, so give me a
Yes, I
break.
got that. Did Ruth, you had a question?
I do, on page 41, the study for labor consultant study for city projects, what was that?
It's kind of a miscellaneous 5,000 if we need to do a consultant for any city projects.
We were advised by our current labor consultant that we might keep some money in there in case we needed to come back on a personnel issue or, you know, anything like that that was outside of the expertise of our city attorney.
Okay.
I love when the consultants recommend keeping money in the budget for them.
Right.
Sure.
But just to be fair, CIS recommends it too, so.
Yes, they have.
CIS recommends that we have
Just
some money
saying.
set aside for labor.
Probably just stays right in there, right? It's like always like item D.
Yeah, I used to work for the state, and what's, one thing is different with the city is with the state, when you get to the end of the year, they're spending all kinds of gobs of money so that they can make sure and have as much money as they had last year. The city, I've never seen, our city, I've never seen them do that, so that's one good difference.
I'm there.
All right, so do we need a break? Anybody need a break? Okay, so we'll move on to Public Works then.
Public Works. So I guess the first thing I'll go over is the utility fee schedule. We had the volume rates for.
Where's that at?
I didn't give a copy of that. I just got that cleaned up the other day.
Okay.
Where I probably should bring, I'll bring you all a copy or send you a copy. Okay, anyway, the sewer rates were increased 75 cents per the charges for sewers and water. The storm drain fees and the utility fees, we increased them by 5.56 based on the engineer news and record reports. That's what we use for the SDCs. So that's how we provide all the new water rates and sewer rates and the street rates. So
Basically, just trying to keep up with inflation there.
Right,
So
keeping
it's
up with
keeping up
inflation.
with the construction cost increases.
Right.
The index we use looks at the cost of construction, big picture, and is that rate goes up and fluctuates, we want our fees to follow that so that we make sure that we're collecting enough to keep up with those increased construction costs.
And we did that for both single family and then we did it for the multi-residential, commercial, and industrial. I will bring you a fee schedule for the next meeting. So starting on page 42, we're looking at the street fund. The street utility fee went up 5.75, which is pretty close to 5.56. The state highway, that number comes from the shared revenues report. They got their interest. They're not making very good interest this year, but hopefully they will next year. You see the 69,000 transfer from the general fund. Their carry forward is projected to be 327,000 next year. Any questions on the revenue?
For the public services and Pioneer Telephone, were those franchise fees?
Yes, we moved those to the general fund.
Okay.
And then we transfer, they're now over there, so we transfer whatever we're projecting to get from them to that's the transfer down below, 69,000.
So that allows you money in the general fund that you don't have to transfer if you don't want to, but you can. Any other questions on 42? Okay, 43?
43 is the payroll, salary study increases and everything related to it. Their vacation accrual, I don't remember if they had somebody retiring. Can't remember on that. I'd have to look. Any questions on the personnel services?
Okay. Any questions on the 44? Wait a minute.
His big expense there is his oil mat and crack and slurry seal. The reason it was so high this year, he had some projects that we did last year at the first of the year. They can only do slurry seal and stuff in July and August pretty much. So he's got one project right now that he's possibly will be ready next year. He's not sure yet. That's why his number's where it is. But if you want an explanation on the number, we can bring that.
The only one I had a question on was the system supplies and maintenance. It looks like a new thing, and on the narrative, there's nothing there.
Okay, well, let's find out from Kevin, because that's something he requested. Chris?
I think it was there in 21, 22.
Yeah, I remember he said that. Let's find out what he's got. Chris, was that your question too?
Well, no, I'm just rethinking my question. It just feels like there's a lot of like random things decreasing by like 20 and 30%. That's fun.
Okay.
Like is that typical? Does it just fluctuate a lot, or?
We could ask Kevin why they're fluctuating. I mean,
I guess especially just like with the streetscape stuff, happening is that. Yeah.
I mean, if you'd look at your point making, the right. GIS services about a third of the way down. It's only down $500, but previous years it was around $4,000 or $5,000.
Well, that's likely because we have a GIS person in-house now.
Oh, that's right, the GIS, that's right.
Yeah. Very part-time, but we brought that position in-house.
Oh, okay.
So you see the contracted services drop down.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
I'm guessing there's a little there for he's having to work with.
Okay. Well, no, that totally answers the question. Okay. Any other questions on, David?
I don't remember, the Heritage Tree Program doesn't cost the city really any money, does it? From what we talked about in the past.
I think there will be some cost associated with it for markers for the trees.
I guess I was wondering, because the tree landscape maintenance goes up about $5,000. I wasn't sure that might.
Well, I'm sure part of that, and Kevin can answer this better.
Yeah, well, I'll ask Kevin to give us an,
2 trees. 3
I think
trees.
some of it is tree removal, probably.
Yeah.
okay.
Any other questions? Okay. On now, what I have now also to transfer to land building equipment. Is that in the right place
Yes.
from streets? Okay.
Yep,
It's
that's-
part of streets.
That
Okay.
is part, that
But
is
it's-
for their equipment, their buildings or their
Okay.
trucks and vehicles and so on. Then
Got
they have infrastructure that they're transferring over. They'll have $100,000 contingency and end the year 44,000. So they're getting in good, they're getting better.
Okay. And I think on that one, okay, 46 and 47.
7 and 8 are the narratives.
Any questions about that? Moving on, water.
I did just circle the lack of narrative for system supplies maintenance. We'll get that
Okay,
on page 48.
Oh,
got it.
In that last narrative, the chip and crack ceiling, list 100, you see the narrative amount?
Hang on.
Are those 2 separate $100,000 expenses?
what page is that on?
47. at the bottom.
I'm sorry, I jumped at the bottom.
That's an old note.
I think that's just a note about this.
Oh, that's another one. Yeah, I'll fix that note.
So the 137,000 isn't going to be there? Or
Yeah, I
isn't it?
think it's.
The narrative, we
The
need to fix the
narrative is not
narrative. I'll get Kevin to fix that.
Yeah, I think the dollar's right, just the narrative needs.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else from 47 and 48? And so on to water, 49.
All right. We got the meter, the water sales, that's 1.7. Last year was 1.9. That number is not working right. That's not going to be what it's going to come in at. So they should be able to weather that one, get through it okay. I told Kevin that something's not right with that budget, but we're getting the right amount of revenues in to cover his expenditures. But it did eat into his beginning fund balance. But the 1.75 will help them get back online. They're not going to get 1.9 this year. They'll probably get about 1.6. So they're 300 short. Kevin is aware of it. He's been keeping everything in line. It's just it ate up his beginning fund balance. So you can see that. But the 1.75 we'll still be able to put money aside for his projects, the water treatment if we need anything there. You'll see that on page 51. We're still putting 450,000 in there. So anyway, the expenditures, we'll just run right through this real quick and then we can ask questions as we go. His salaries and everything, just like we've been talking all through. It's the salary study plus the related expenditures. The material and services on page 50, no major change there. Pretty much the status quo budget's even down a little bit. Transfers, like I said, we're still going to be doing a big adjustment. We're going to transfer money for the equipment, for the infrastructure, and then his equipment, his office equipment, and his building. He will, he'll have a contingency of 125 and end the year with $60,000. So any questions on that budget?
Yeah, on these allocations that are being done, I was going to mention it went down at the storm drain. I think it was the storm drain, but like the telephone going down by half nearly. And maybe the tires is the same sort of thing, but.
The telephones are going down. We did
but
the phone bills have gone down. I remember, Chelsea, you were behind all that. What did we do?
I guess I'd ask you to look at all of them.
Oh, the telephones?
Well, in that, and I'll look to see if it's where I wrote it. There's one of them, like the storm drain. Yes, the storm drain use for telephone, it's $1,900. And it isn't a third of the budget of what the water is. So however that's being allocated isn't right on in the way this is.
Those are actual, we'll look at them. Telephone.
And I don't know what else is allocations, but I noticed there was 2 or 3 different things that, wow, doesn't make any sense in terms of the allocations. Particularly, I noticed it where, like here, they're going way down, and in other places they didn't change.
Okay.
And
we'll check into it.
At least budget-wise, they don't seem to make sense.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Jeff?
I'm just kind of going back, I need some clarification, especially the cash balance forward that dropped from the 417 to the 41,501. Were you saying he's already spent that money to catch up?
It's a projected, we're projecting that we're going to spend that 417 down to 41,000. But that's just that's his operations for the year, his projections.
So I guess I just don't understand why.
Well, but the biggest reason is because of revenue. We're not going to get that
Just
revenue.
because of revenue, so he knew
That's the
that going
biggest-
in, he didn't get, there wasn't any money to the general fund or anything like that from,
No.
kid that he sent to, okay.
No, this is a proprietary business type operation. They have to survive on their, based off their rates. Mhm.
Any other questions on 49?
I know this is no longer applicable, but what are contributions to fixed assets?
What are our contributions? Where is that? Oh, my goodness. That's an old Joan. That's a Gatsby thing. It shouldn't be here, but there's nothing I can do about it. Not Ruth. Joan actually put contributions there. The only thing I can think of, you got something from somebody. I can look into it, Ruth. It's an old thing. It's something from Joan. It's probably fine. It's just, you want me to look into that?
No, I think it's.
So are you looking at 5155, 5155?
Yes.
Okay. She's looking at 51.
Or 3611,
The very first thing.
03611.
No, she's up here.
page 49,
Ruth, are you on the revenue?
49.
Yes. Water, page 49, the very
49,
first
top.
line.
The first 2 lines?
The first line.
Oh, the first line, sorry, yeah.
That's all.
There's nothing there now.
That's, she
That's
got,
2 years old.
the city got something in that year for some kind of fixed assets. And it doesn't, something down here, I'd have to go look.
But it doesn't impact the current budget
It doesn't affect the
Or-
current budget.
or next year's budget.
Nope,
Okay.
doesn't affect the budget.
Okay. Any other questions? 49, 50, anything on 50? Or 51? Everybody good? On narratives, 52 through 54. Am I going too fast?
Page 53 is the Kevin question, but what is Alum Pond water? Is that just the?
Page 53. Which one was that, Ruth?
53. DEQ discharge.
Oh. We can ask them.
Oh, no, that's the pond south of the water treatment plant that the water goes into and stuff filters out of it,
From the pond.
and then to send that on to the.
We'll get Kevin to,
Yeah, he could explain it better than I
yeah, he can
just did.
explain that.
Well, the
He
stuff,
really explained
alum is the stuff that cleans the water, or part of it. And so when they, kind of rinse the filters and all that, it goes out into that pond rather than straight into the sewer or something like that. And then it just is then discharged out into the, after it settles out. They're out there always, you've probably seen it, David, now. They're out there digging muck out of the pond every once in a while. All the dirt that gets filtered. Well, maybe muck's not the right word. Silt. Okay, sorry.
On page 54, landscape maintenance, do we have a water tower?
Up on Navy.
Do we have a what?
A water tower.
Well, let's ask Kevin.
Yeah, up on Navy.
That's it.
Water reservoir.
Yeah.
That's the same thing.
It just doesn't look like a
Yes.
tower. It's not cool like the old towns that says Philomath on it.
Oh, so that's a tower to you. Well, maybe it is.
We'll find out. We'll ask Kevin.
We don't have a tower.
Well, come up with a. When they built that, it was like a $1.25 million thing.
All right, any more on the water? Okay.
Sir, no, sir.
Sewer fund,
Sewer fund.
55. People are getting a little punchy here. It's only quarter after, what, 8, 7?
7.
Oh,
We're doing good.
We're moving right along.
Okay, wastewater. We have the sewer rates projected to be 1.587. Everything is online with the sewer fund this year. We're transferring in $250,000 from the SDC, so that's paying for the part of the principal for the debt related to the sewer fund. Their cash forward balance would be 582. And the personnel services are, like we've already discussed. And then on page 56, sewer main repair, he asked for another 13,000 there or something. We probably may want him to explain that, so I'll wait for a question on that. Otherwise, it's pretty much status quo budget.
Any questions? Yeah.
I have an odd question.
Okay.
The water fees for shut off and late fees.
Oh, you're talking back to water.
Well, yeah, I'm relating the two, so we're not like scaling clear back, but
Oh, I see. Water,
they went
wastewater.
up, but the sewer late fees and shut off fees went down. And I'm not like an expert, but it feels like they'd be kind of tied together, right? Because you get
Not necessarily. The shut-off fees, late fees are not related to the new, the sewer inspection fees or the new accounts. Those are as they come. Shut-off fees and late fees, that's, that happens every month. We have late fees and we have shut-off fees. So that's that's continuously going up. Am I looking?
Yeah, I think he's saying here, they've decreased, but in the water fund here,
Yeah,
they went up.
Where, help us all, let's look at what line.
Right.
Where-
And the
I'm
water-
just curious why they'd be separate.
Like who's shutting off their sewer but not their water?
So we charge them both, but we split the cost. Joan's always done that. That's why this is half of what we charged over there.
One goes up, one goes down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me look at water. I mean,
But water's up 2%, which makes sense to me, because everything in the world is up 2% right now, at least. But, late fees are down 20%.
okay.
But the revised budget jumped for some reason.
Gotcha, I see what you're saying.
Not really jumped,
Okay.
because the
I'll
original
look
budget's
at-
the same.
I'll look at them, see what I can figure out.
I mean, you really don't shut off the sewer. You can't,
Well, that's-
you can't shut
So
it.
we have
water to put down it. and
Well, oh, that's
There's
true.
no way to bill a sewer, they just take a percentage of how much water you use.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was. what
It's like,
guess-
they don't know how much you've thrown
Yeah,
down.
I guess you shut off the water, you
Meter
shut
on
off
your
the sewer.
bottom of your
Never
toilet.
mind, never mind.
It should be the same unless they accounted for the fees.
Now, I'll look at them, but it's,
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not like trying to ferret out some conspiracy out of this. But it's weird.
Oh,
things
yeah.
that-
I'll try and light them up.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Hide in the
Oh.
sewer.
Okay. Any questions on 55, on the, mostly personnel and the income, other ones? Or 56, or did you even get a chance to talk about 56?
Yeah, I did, Larry, I did.
Okay,
So I have a question about 56.
okay.
The sewer main repair, is that part of the difference, the increase? Is that because of streetscapes, or what is that from?
It's not related to the streetscapes, different project,
Different project?
but we can have Kevin report on it.
Yeah, we'll do Kevin, yeah.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Ruth, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Or was that just in case?
On page 55, the sale of equipment, what is Kevin gonna sell?
I guess those are,
Where is this?
the sale of equipment.
You can sell Mike's car.
There's a
No,
short
Gary,
list,
yeah, Gary's got some items that he's
sold a
gonna
couple
sell.
pieces of equipment that
Yeah,
were
we put them on, is that Gov.
Yeah,
deal?
gov deals.
10,000.
Yeah, that's the number that they're figuring they're gonna sell something next year. They've got some equipment they're gonna get rid of.
Is it 10,000 of them sold?
We can find out what it is. Because they do have some, they've been selling equipment the last couple of weeks, and then Gary was saying he's got one he's gonna probably not do until next year. And we put stuff on Gov Deals, we get some good money from that. People like the equipment. So we can find out what that is.
Any other questions? 55, 56, 57? Yes.
I guess I was curious about why there's an increase in the contingency on page 57, total wastewater expenditures, debt, SBC and transfers. That's something that was coming up.
Okay, what page are you on?
57.
Contingency, that's, we try to keep about 25% there based on operating. I mean, we can make that anything we want, but, Kevin, he needs to have about that much he's got 1.9 in expenditures. So 150 is not a bad number to have. And so there's formulas down here that I have that you don't see, that if it goes below a certain number, I start researching it. But I it basically looks at the total expenditures, and if it's like 10%, it's good enough. They should have enough wiggle room in some of their budgets, because we don't do it based on line items, we do it on the bottom line. So, and what was your other one, SDCs?
No, it's the same, it's falls in the
Okay.
same category.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions on 57? Or the narratives 58, 59, and 60?
on page 59, what is NPDES permit under DEQ discharge?
What was that?
Non-point source,
What?
it's a non-point source discharge. Kevin can tell you.
Which one is this?
Right in the middle. DEQ discharge permit.
Oh, he's even got one there. Okay, so this is on water and sewer.
Yeah, I think you're really close, Chaz.
Okay,
Those are discharge permit fees that we cannot
can't dodge those.
question
Yeah,
or dodge.
yeah.
It's a federal thing. Any other questions on those? Storm drains. Page 61.
Storm drain is a growing fund. The revenue stream is increasing. We increased that by 5%. Only came out to 3, but scratch my head when I see that. Their balance board is starting to settle down and starting to grow. The majority of the GIS specialists is in this fund. That's what their personnel services are. This big ticket item in there is the contracted services on page 62. They also do a transfer out to infrastructure. They're starting to get cash flow where they can do that. The contingency is 30, it's growing, and they're going to have a ending fund balance to carry them forward for the next year. So do we have any questions on this?
Christopher, you got anything on storm drain?
Not that I know of. I'm grateful for them.
And did you have any at the end of the sewer
No.
before you left?
He was just testing.
Yeah, I was making sure it was working for it.
Okay, so on 62, or I guess 61, 62 and 63, the narrative. So on storm drains, we don't have any questions? Okay. Development review, 64, page 64.
Okay. That particular item is a plan review, basically, and then pre-design. We put the number, we put 150,000 on each year and see what happens, see who comes in. This is something, they come to us, and then we charge them a certain fee. I can't remember what that was.
4%.
4%, right.
It's 4% plus actual, so we collect a 4% deposit. So this is a subdivision comes in order for us to review their plans. We don't just do a dollar for dollar. We charge them 4% of the infrastructure cost up front. They have their engineer design everything, they submit it to us, and then we use those funds to pay our city engineer to review those plans. And they'll review the plans, and if they're good plans, they go back, we usually keep it under 4%. If there's mistakes and it's got to go back and forth, we got to review them again, make changes, then it'll go over that 4%. And then we do charge them monthly for any overages that they do as they're working through their approval process. At some point, they're going to get approved plans. They're going to start building. The engineer's going to have to be inspecting as they're building. That still goes into that 4%, or we bill them monthly. So it's just a way for us to get a little bit of money ahead of time at the front of the project, rather than wait until after the project and find out there wasn't any money. So.
I did have a question.
Go for it.
And I can see probably why, but I just was going to ask you anyway. Now, building permits, I mean, I know that's somewhat different than this, but it's all kind of, in my head, development. Is there a reason to keep them separate? I mean, there must be a reason you have them separate.
Yeah, West Tech's not typically, our city engineer isn't typically reviewing building permits. That gets inspected by the building inspector as
Right.
opposed to the engineer who's looking at the plans for infrastructure.
Okay.
So most of this money, you'd see most of this money comes in from the developer or the property owner, and it's going right out to West Tech Engineering for review of engineered plans for public infrastructure. And private infrastructure on larger sites, but.
Okay.
I would also add, we have a set contract for building permits with Benton County, in which when we take that revenue in, 70% goes to them to pay for the plan reviews and inspection services. So it's a completely different process.
Okay, all right, yeah, no, they made sense. I knew there must be some reason. Any questions then on 64 or 65? Capital projects. I see we've had a couple of people leave to go to the restroom. Does anybody else, or do we need to take a break?
I'm good.
I'm gonna recommend a 5-minute stretch at least. I think
Yeah.
we've been here 2 hours. I think
Yeah.
let's
Okay.
get up and get some blood flowing.
All right, yeah, we might, going through that capital.
We're getting ready to go through the capital.
Okay,
project,
we'll take a
yeah.
5-minute break.
Yeah.
Sorry, I It was just checking.
What's in great consideration?
Brent and Jessica, you there? Oh, there's Brent. Jessica, are you back? Okay, all right. Everybody else is here, so we'll move on to capital project funds. Okay. As titled anyway.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Page 66. All right, this particular fund is funded by grants and transfers from the general fund, street, water, and now some storm drain. We've got to carry forward from past. The biggest proposed budget this year, we've got 3 grants that we're going to go out and to discover for the Starlight Village, North 19th Sidewalk and Water Line, and Mavic Hill. And the Business Oregon grant, it says 9 million in the original and revised. Well, we're not going to spend that this year. It's going to move over to next year. That's why it's 9 million. It just rolled it forward. And down in the other transfers from the general fund, we're not going to be transferring the 1.078 million is being transferred this year. It'll be used next year. So that's pretty much the revenues. Any questions on the revenues? Go ahead, David.
Well, it's kind of revenue, but the skate park, is that a project? I know there was some.
That money is transferred, that's in the park building reserve, the 30,000. That is, if I'm pretty sure that's what that one's for.
On this?
Yeah, it's 41, it's 03955. And we've also transferred some of that money this year. Let me see, where is that? There. Yeah, that money's already been transferred this year. We're just going to do the project this year. Trying to find it.
This year, we're just doing the feasibility study.
Yeah, we're doing feasibility, right.
We don't have any money budgeted for the construction
Right.
itself.
But that's still in the works.
Mhm.
The feasibility study will get
Yeah.
out, hopefully this fiscal year.
On the income, on those, and I don't need one explanation tonight, but could you have the Public Works talk about the grant for Starlight Village, the North 19th and Mavic Hill?
Yeah.
Whatever those projects are, just talk about them.
Okay.
Just more from a curiosity standpoint.
Okay, got it.
Anything else on Jeff? Oh, okay. Anybody else have anything on 66? Or how about, oh, you haven't talked about 67.
I haven't done 67 yet.
Okay, go for it.
Now 67, this matches up with the capital project listing. The first, let's see, the first 5 or 6 lines through police building, no, library building. Those are all general fund transfers. Those are coming from the general fund. The 155 is for the Cochran Park. The 30 grand for the city hall building. That is, we're going to do a design over on that side of the city hall. That's what the 30 grand is for. The 24,000 in the police building, that's miscellaneous building improvements. He's been putting aside 24,000 each year, so eventually do something over there if he needs to do it. Library, the 30 grand, I think that's another, is that the feasibility there that we're doing there?
No, that's going towards actual expansion or whatever is going to happen there. We had a separate line item for feasibility. We met it, so we have money in the feasibility
Right.
to get spent this year.
Right. Okay. And then in the 250 in street infrastructure, that's for the 16th Street project. The 9.805 million. The only reason I know this, I've got all this in the spreadsheet over on the side. Y'all can't see that. The 9.8 is for the water treatment. 11th Street, and then Natick Reserve. Am I saying that right?
Neeback.
Neeback, okay. And then the aquifer, there's a project we're doing there. The remote reads, that's another project. Starlight's in that project there too. That's part of the grants. For the 1.66 mil, that's for 16th, 17th, and 18th sewer, the sewer line project. And let's see what else we got in there.
58,000, that's correct?
Sorry, that again?
The 58,000, did you see what that was for?
No, I did not. I'm trying to, that's what I was looking, I'm trying to figure that one out. We need it, I was gonna suggest, let's go over to the narratives. There may be some more explanation there. Try to capture it there. The 58, oh, that's for the 16th Street. That's part of that project. That's the storm drain part of it. That's what the 58,000 is for. Oh, and then there's a 50,000 utility rate study. When I did a rate study in Newport, it cost us about 80,000. So I figure we're not that big, so 50 should cover it, I hope. Any other questions on those numbers?
So if I'm understanding correctly about the couple of different things for 16th, down by the elementary school, that's being fully improved, correct? Or not?
Yeah, it'll be fully improved. What's there, as far as extending it over to 17th Street, which is the total scope of the project identified in the transportation plan. Extending over, that one's still subject to approval by the school board because they own that property. So we're going to have a joint meeting with the city council and the school board to see if we can get the school board on board with contributing that land that they currently own to public right of way, so we can continue that road all the way over to 17th Street, not have that dead end anymore.
But the funds here is to go down.
The funds here to go all the way down and extend over, but it's pending approval from the
at least
school
that
board.
part of it. Okay.
If the school board doesn't want to do the right of way, we'll still do improvements at 16th Street. It'll just be a cul-de-sac instead of a punch-through street.
Great.
Lisa?
And the, couple of things, the 30,000 for City Hall administration area, is that just a remodel?
Right.
Fairly substantial remodel on that side. We're just out of office areas and desk areas, and storage is becoming a problem. So we've added employees and not added any square footage.
So it's not bumping out of the building, just remodeling what's the current.
Remodeling within, yeah. Probably making the lobby area a little bit smaller and trying to give a little more staff area.
And then a secondary question, the utility rate study, is it really $50,000?
It's a guesstimate. I mean, we spent 80,000 in Newport. So I'm figuring, 50 is close.
We'll put an RFP out. We'll do a
Yeah.
competitive bid process. And
Right.
we'll get several bidders and get some good references.
Thank you.
And that doesn't really say what it's for in that, they call it a utility rate study. When we did that back in the 90s, I think we were even around 100,000. Of course, it was the first time it was ever done. But they look at all the money you're spending and what you're spending it for and where it's going. And I mean, it's not just to do with, you're charging this amount. No, it's pretty extensive.
Yeah. Part of what we're looking for that project is a schedule too, looking out, so that we're not looking every year going, do we need to go up, do we need to go down? But we'll actually have a little bit more of a schedule laid out in front of us. Still some flexibility, but that'll help a little bit too.
I don't have a question, but just bus operations, the bus shelter, I'm thinking of buying a bus, but we're not buying shelters.
Right.
And then the expense of running the bus system is at city council level. That's 78,000.
Yeah, that's back in the other spots. Yeah, it's not here.
Any other questions on 67? Okay,
I have a question.
go ahead.
There is a contingency, but no unappropriated reserve, which actually is appropriate. On page 67, there is a contingency amount,
Okay,
but no unappropriated reserve.
well, it's going to either be put in contingency or unreserved, because we still have these big projects. I would rather have it where I can get to it, and then I will go to council for approval before we even spend it. So that's just, it's kind of a fail, just keep us from, I can't touch it if it's in the reserve. If it's a contingency and we have an emergency, we can overrun on the waste treatment plant. We can't raise rates immediately, that would take too long, or we'd have to go out and get a loan. This saves us just having it there where we can get to it if we need it.
Yeah.
The goal is not to use it at all.
Right.
We won't spend it unless we need it.
I would actually prefer it in a contingency because my understanding is that the unappropriated reserve is to carry you through until property taxes come in.
Right,
But it's the capital projects budget.
right.
So I wouldn't think an unappropriated reserve would be appropriate here.
There you go.
I'd argue that one of the benefits of an appropriate reserve is that it can carry you through while your weight of tax credits go in, but it's also there as that emergency that you have to go to if a large project or something goes over.
Right.
It's another purpose of it. In the general fund, when we've talked about that ending fund balance and that unappropriated reserve, it's been targeted that we need to at least have operating expenses for 5 months, 6 months there. But it does serve more purposes than just that. We've just not had the luxury of having a large lump sum of money to have for those other reasons, like an overage of a big project, so you've got access to funding. Without having to go to the bank for a loan or go out to the state and try to get last minute, funding for something, it's there.
Christopher?
I apologize if this was already noted, but just NEBAC is NEA instead of NE.
Oh, okay.
And then, can you just expand a little bit on what the Starlight Village project is?
Yes, I can.
We're going to bring that back.
bring it back to
Oh,
next
great,
time.
okay, okay,
yeah.
sorry. I think I tuned out for a second.
You wasn't listening to me, because that was my
Oh, my God.
Okay, so is there any other questions on the 66 and 67 or the narratives about them? Okay. On 70,
Yes.
Maybe it's just an explanation of the funds, this 42 and 43. I guess I'm just in my head not getting it. I should remember it, but
These are the SDC funds. We based our revenue based on 20 family homes, new family homes. And for the governmental, we only get the parks, streets, and improvement and street reimbursements. We don't get, we separated out the street water and sewer and storm drain over to 43. That's why there's two SDCs. Interest is pretty healthy. We do get an admin fee, again, based on those 20 houses. Carry forward is $2.3 million. And we're planning to spend, we're still working on the park master plan. That's 25 for next year. And then we got some outlay for the parks, streets, and the streets. We don't need that transfer to sewer fund. That was not done correctly. That's now over in the proprietary fund. Contingency is 254, and then the ending reserve, that's the SDC's carrying forward, that's
Yeah, and I didn't ask the question correctly. If you notice on 70, 71, there's a fund 42, and then on 73, there's a fund proprietary 43.
on page what?
73, and you sort of talked about it.
Oh, okay.
But
Right.
I guess what's the difference?
There's one's governmental, that's, it's related to the general fund and the street fund.
The 42.
And 42, that's 42. 43 is related to street, and it's not street, water, sewer, storm drain. The auditors had them break it apart 2 years ago.
Oh, so that's why on 42, there's no
There's
water
no-
and sewer and storm.
Right. and
Now
then
there's a new water, sewer, storm in 43.
43,
Okay. All
right.
All right.
And those are related to those projects.
Oh, all right. And it was to do with what?
The auditors requested
The
that
auditor.
because parks and the, yeah, it's.
Oh,
You can't you're not supposed to commingle.
oh, gotcha.
They don't
Oh,
like that.
the water and sewer,
Water
hey,
and
their
sewer.
income. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, now I get it. Thank you. Did everybody else get that? You already had it. Okay.
Any questions on both funds?
Okay. Other funds.
I may let Chris talk about these two.
Only if there's questions.
The community development,
Well, I can help you with that. What are they?
that's the community development block grants repayments.
Oh, okay.
And then we got a downtown loan program that we haven't really started yet. That would be like a facade program, something to that extent. So we put the money there if we can find time to do it, and then we can do it. We got the budget set up for it. So that's what the community development's about.
So like the 93 and 97 block grant, what are they for?
These were funds that the city received and then gave out in the way of loans, essentially. Mostly they're not repayable until a home sells, and when the home sells, then they're paid back. So we never know when that revenue is going to come in. It's not an active program we have going where we're extending new loans to homeowners. They were done for, window replacement, new roofs, that sort of bit for folks with hardships or income limits and stuff. So they're, again, we don't necessarily rely on that income coming in because it just is completely up to when the homes sell. What we are looking at doing is with those monies coming in, the city's had in place for a number of years a facade improvement program where we do issue loans to business owners so that they can do facade improvements, and those have been repayable back into the program, so you extend the funds out when they come back as well. Going to have a discussion with the city council about kind of resurrecting that program and pushing it back out there, but looking at not just loans, but looking at some grants as well to really try to stimulate some facade improvements in the downtown area, especially as we're rolling out the streetscape project, trying to help those business owners to give a nice little facelift to the area and really push that economic development in the area. So that's the monies that you're seeing there.
And so essentially, this money would just revolve, come back in and then go back out.
If we did the loans, the recommendation of the council is going to be that we don't look at loans and don't have to do the tracking and everything else.
Chris?
This is not necessarily a budget committee thing, I guess, but for that facade thing, can we just make sure we try to involve the public art committee in the development of that?
Sure.
Thanks.
It's actually a little deeper than that, but we'll talk
I
about
know,
it with council.
I want to make sure that, I'm not saying they have to be the be all end all, but just, yeah.
We'll actually be looking at get some architects involved at that program as well.
And this section, or was there any questions, other questions about that 75 and 76 about those block grant stuff? 77 is something a little different.
That's that's a Mill Pond loan that we took out at OECD loans. They pay us each year that payment, and we turn around and pay it back to the Oregon, is that economic? I don't even know what that one means. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure, I don't either.
yeah,
Oregon Economic and Community Development.
yeah.
Yeah. These funds were used to put infrastructure in the industrial area on the north side of the highway. So we extended water and sewer lines there to support future development there. When the new owner purchased that property, they acquired, or they took over that loan, so they're just making payments back to us for that infrastructure just in place. So it was intended to help spur development of those lots and those properties. We wouldn't do that for a typical homeowner, but we do look to do it for properties in the industrial areas where it's going to create job creation.
In that case, it didn't work out like it was intended to.
There's a few businesses there,
Well,
and the infrastructure's still in place.
Yeah, no, I understand
It's
that.
been slow to sprout, we'll say.
Now, is there anything else on the budget that
No,
you
it's
guys have for us?
I guess my other question on the last page, 78,
Oh,
why is
okay.
the estimated interest income so low with that cash balance? I mean, it's only
What
$75 on the last one, 78.
That's money in, money out. There's not much
Just
in,
not enough time to sit on it to
No.
pay any more than that.
they pay it, I mean, they pretty much, they know when we have to make the payment. And so, if we make any interest, it's a miracle. Yeah, money comes in, money goes out.
They keep it in their account all year long, making
Yeah.
interest.
That's what I'm saying, there's like $75, really?
They know when it's due.
They know they've got the payment schedule, and they know when it's due, so they give it to us about a week ahead of time. So, think about it, Jeff, we don't get much time with that money.
So you could have put $10 in, right?
Pardon?
You could have put $10 in. too.
I could have. But I like 75.
Okay, so,
We have a lot to bring back.
what's that?
We have a lot to bring back, so, a lot of good questions, thank you. Thank
So-
you all.
On the agenda, it says respond to questions from the budget committee, but you've been doing that. Or I guess, are there any other questions
Right,
from the budget committee?
got a bunch, quite a bit.
It's not really consequential, but a lot of them with personnel costs, we have a closed side account line, and that's one-time deal done.
Yeah.
That needs to be taken out.
Yeah, I need to get that out. I keep seeing that. I gotta figure out how to get rid of blank lines.
And then next to the last item is visitor comments, and we don't have any visitors. Just as a note about that, the planning commission working with staff has been working on trying to find out ways to get more community involvement in things like this. And there's been coming up some changes, nothing, I don't think drastic, but that hopefully will help get people involved in some form or another. But is there anything else well, it'll go to the council. Okay. You was looking like puzzled, like, I don't know about this.
No. I had that look.
So is there anything else to come before the committee? When do we meet again?
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks
Don't
from now.
even know the date.
Okay, all right.
And Mike, just a reminder, is the intent to have some written answers and those will go out before the meeting, or are we just gonna bring all the answers to the meeting?
No,
when
we
come?
will put a package together and they'll have it a week, like normal. I think I've got it scheduled to come out. I need a. Next meeting will be May 3rd and at 5:30. And it's scheduled to have a package out to you all on April 28th. So that's kind of the plan. We'll get these all together.
In terms of timing, or the time of it, obviously, it's been hard for Councilor Moore to get here. Well, it was more like, does it have to be at 5:30, maybe 6? I don't know.
6, I mean,
I don't know.
it's entirely up to the committee.
And we have a half an hour.
Christopher times it to be here, no matter what, when he gets here.
Well, yeah, I just need to, I also realized I have another meeting at 6:30 on May 3rd.
Oh, anyway. Oh, okay.
I'll figure this out.
Oh, all right, okay. I was just
No,
trying to think of you.
We can adjust if it's easier for the committee, so whatever the committee.
Whatever the committee wants.
I think we were thinking 5:30, just so we could get out of here at 8 o'clock instead of
No,
8:30.
I'm fine with that. I assume our next meeting won't take as long. So, okay, all right, then we'll adjourn the meeting and we'll see y'all on the 3rd.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.